everybody and welcome back. My name is Mel and today we're going to do some unhauling. I try to do an unhaul at least once a quarter because it helps keep my shelves from overflowing with all of the things that I accumulate, and I accumulate a lot. And I'm already feeling like I'm busting at the seams a little bit again, even though I just did a massive unhaul. So we're gonna go through my shelves kind of one by one and see if there's anything that I can pull off in order to make some more space for the book haul that I probably need to do a couple of weeks after this one. I've already pulled a few things off my shelves, and so we'll go over those kind of at the end of things that I've already taken down. But I guess without further ado, let's just move over to the first shelf and see what we can find. And those are all of my like romance books, and the romance that's not fantasy romance based. There are probably going to be a lot coming off of this shelf just simply because I don't reread romance. Sometimes I do like the occasional contemporary romance, but I'm not gonna reread them, so I don't feel like I need to be keeping a lot of them, especially since there are quite a few on here that are very old and I can easily get them from the library if I decide to reread. So I think I see a couple already that I'm gonna pull down, so let me grab those. So I do think that I'm probably going to unhaul Fix Her Up by Tessa Bailey. I actually unhauled the second and the third book off of my Kindle today because, again, I feel like if I ever were to reread these, I could just do it via the library. These were fun. I enjoyed them. I enjoyed the first book the best out of all three, so I think that I'm going to unhaul this one. And then I'm also going to unhaul Tangled by Emma Chase. Read this one a long time ago. It is a billionaire romance, I think, and it was fun. It was funny, but it wasn't an all-time favorite, and I'm never gonna reread it. Okay, next. I think I'm gonna keep the Colleen Hoover. I'm trying to decide on the Jeannie Hawn. Okay, I see one, I think. I actually see two. First one is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I loved this. It was fun, it was cute, it was quirky, but I'm not going to reread it, so we're gonna get rid of this one. It is about a couple that I think is the maid of honor and the best man at someone's wedding, and they end up going on the honeymoon because the bride and the groom get sick, something like that. They hate each other, enemies to lovers kind of situation. And then I'm also going to unhaul Black Iris by Leah Rader. This has been sitting on my shelves for I don't even know how long, but it's got some dingy edges, so it's been a while. I'm not going to read this anytime soon, and because it is an older title, I can easily get it from the library if I want to read it at some point, so I do think I'm going to unhaul this. If you've read it and you think that I would enjoy this, because I think it is a dark romance, let me know and I'll start to prioritize it. Okay, so I know exactly what's going to be next. Let me grab those. That is going to be the Katie Robert Wicked Villains series. This series I bought because there was a lot of hype around them and I got FOMO, and so I decided to grab them all because they are quite short and I'm not loving them. I read the first three, with the third one being my favorite because it had the most plot, and I unfortunately it's not really the series for me. There's not a lot of plot to these. It is a lot of smut. I was hoping it would be a little bit darker than it actually is, so I think that I'm going to take all of these off of my shelves. Okay. So I think that does it for the romance shelf. I am going to leave some of these up there for now, and I may end up getting rid of more of them later, but let's move on to fantasy romance. So for fantasy romance, there are currently 3 shelves, it looks like, of fantasy romance books, although one of them is mostly J.R. Ward, and I am not getting rid of my By Dagger Brotherhood books. So looking at the first shelf, I don't see anything that I'm just dying to unhaul up there. It has the J.L. Armentrout series. I'm still enjoying those enough to keep them. Savage Lands, I want to try the next book before I unhaul. Same with Wolf Gone Wild, I want to try it before I unhaul. Keeping all of the Charlaine Harris. Guild may end up going. It actually probably, no, it's going. So I think I'm going to get rid of the Plated Prisoner series. If I decide that I want these, I can just get the newer editions because I'm a little concerned that the 5th and final book in the series is actually going to be in a different edition anyway, and I don't have the 4th one. I'm not paying $20 for it because I gave it 2 stars, so I'm just going to go ahead and unhaul these. Okay, then moving on to the next shelf. Most of these are like my mass market paperbacks that are urban fantasy, paranormal romance. I think I'm gonna end up keeping all of those just because they don't take up a whole lot of room, and at some point I just may want a quick paranormal romance. It also has the Fortuna Sworn books up there. I think I'm gonna keep those, as well as The Zodiac Academy, those may end up going, but I do kind of want to try book 2. I know I'm a masochist, like I don't know why I'm going to try that, but I think I am. So I'm going to keep those, but I can't reach it, it's on the top. Okay, I do think I'm going to unhaul King of Battle and Blood by Scarlett St. Clair. This I read last April for a Realmathon. It wasn't terrible, but it was a lot more smut, a lot less plot than I anticipated this fantasy romance to be. I didn't just completely jive with the relationship. I don't plan to continue in the series, so I'm gonna unhaul this one. Okay, then nothing is going off the J.R. Ward shelf, so moving on to my first mystery thriller horror shelf. Those are my hardcovers, so those are separated out to hardcovers and paperbacks. I may end up changing that at some point because it does kind of make a little bit of a mess, but looking at these, I can tell you right off the bat that I am going to get rid of this signed copy of Devolution. I wanted to like this book. The concept was really cool. It's about a Bigfoot, but it just didn't work in execution, so this one's gonna go. And then let's see. I don't know. Yeah. Also think I'm going to unhaul The Chain by Adrienne McKinney. I liked this book, or at least the first half of this book. It's about people's kids that are kidnapped, and in order to get their kid back, they have to kidnap someone else's kid. But the ending just took a really weird turn into left field and not in a good way. And I ended up not loving the second half of this. So I think that I'm going to get rid of it because I have no intention of ever rereading it. Okay, this is good. This is good. We're making lots of room, and I'm going to have to seriously do some shelf readjusting because now I've got giant holes everywhere. So I think that covers that shelf. Let's move on to this other shelf down here on the end. You guys can't see that one super well, but my desk is in the way, so I'm not really going to be able to get you any closer. I don't really see anything just off the top of my head that I want to yank. Hide by Kirsten White is definitely a contender, but I'm still kind of curious about it for some reason, so I think I'm going to leave it on my shelves. I'm going to leave my Finley Donovan books. I'm very tempted to unhaul What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. I have several of her books, and I think I'm going to give her one more try on the horror front, and if I don't like that one, then I'm going to pull all of them down except for Hollow Places. I read the newer one, House with Good Bones, and actually unhauled it from my Kindle earlier today, so that one went, I'm on the fence. I'm tempted, but we're going to leave it for now. Moving down to this mess of a shelf. We need to put this back somewhere, but I'll do that in a minute. That's an a minute problem. We have Last Housewife. I don't see anything just glancing that I really want to get rid of right now. I'm tempted to get rid of Horror Store and My Best Friend's Exorcism because I just did not love either one of them, but I like the way they look. So for now, I'm going to leave those alone. The Stephen King, I'm going to leave alone. So I just don't really see anything on this shelf that I'm looking at going, I'm never going to touch that or I'm never going to read it. So for now, we're going to leave this shelf be. Moving on to the very last shelf of mystery thriller, as well as starting the sci-fi shelf. Again, I don't really see anything on this first part that's jumping out at me. I definitely want to keep the Deanna Raybourn because I read Killers of a Certain Age recently and really enjoyed it, so I want to get to those. I'm tempted to unhaul Interview with a Vampire because I think if I read it, it's not going to be physically, but I'm going to keep it for now. The Ice Coven's actually book 2, so I need to get The Witch Hunter. The Broken Girls I did enjoy, so I'm going to keep that. So moving on, we love Blake Crouch. I need to read that, enjoyed that. So I don't see anything on this shelf that I want to take off right now. So moving on. Okay, more sci-fi. Let's see if I can get me in frame at all here. Just looking at kind of what these first ones are that you can see, I don't see anything that I want to unhaul. I'm definitely going to keep the ones that I have not read, as well as the Christopher Paolini. I really want to keep that one. Most of these are actually newer additions to my shelf, so I think I'm going to keep everything on here. The Stardust Thief is the first like fantasy book, and I was tempted to unhaul that one. I started it and did not love it, but I do want to continue and see if maybe it wasn't the right time for me to be reading that book. I did get rid of the Kindle version, but I think I'm going to keep the physical for now. So let's go down to my first fantasy shelf. Okay, so that's my first fantasy shelf. Just looking at it, I don't see anything that I really just want to take off. Actually, I can take off this one, which is A Shadow in the Summer. And the reason for this is because Maria gifted me the hardcovers of this entire series. So I may end up getting rid of this one, but Cassidy gifted this one to me. So I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep it for now because I love paperbacks. So we're going to keep that one for now. Blade itself, we're going to keep. Most of these I have not read from this side. Looking at the Catherine Arden, I'm really tempted to unhaul those, but I don't know. Something just makes me want to keep those for now. Small Miracles I'm going to keep. These I haven't read yet, so nothing else on this shelf. Let's move down this way. This is like the awkwardest angle ever, and I apologize to you guys for that. So this is the next shelf. Don't mind Bob. Bob is covering up my Dresden books, which I will not be getting rid of. And then we have a couple of indie, the Of Blood and Fire series. I think I'm going to keep those for now. Definitely keeping City of Brass. Trader's Blade is one that I'm tempted to unhaul because I don't know that it's going to be a series I want to keep all the physical copies of, but for now I'm going to leave it. Yeah, I don't see anything else that's going off the fantasy shelf, so let's move on down a little. Of note, a lot of the fantasy books that I wanted to unhaul, I've already pulled off the shelves, and we'll go over those in a minute. I'm looking at the next fantasy shelf. I don't really see a whole lot that I just want to immediately get rid of. This was the shelf that a certain fantasy series was sitting on that has already been unhauled. I may unhaul The Grey Bastards. I tried that audiobook and was really not enjoying it and ended up DNFing it. I might end up trying the physical book and see if that works a little bit better for me, and if that doesn't, then I'll get rid of it. That's kind of where I'm leaning right now. Yeah, I don't really see anything else on that shelf that needs to go, so let's keep on moving down. The next shelf is purely Robin Hobb. I'm not even going to show you guys that. None of those are leaving. Then we move on to the Robert Jordan, the Poppy War, Chris J. Kristoff, and the Dark Tower series. Again, none of those are going. Flipping on over, and I'm not showing you guys these shelves because I'm not taking anything off of them and they're very just boring. I'm really not sure how this style of unhaul is working, so you'll have to let me know down in the comments if you like it or if you just want me to do the regular sit down unhaul, because I feel like this is not a style that I'm going to be able to keep up with pretty consistently because I'm just one of those yankers. Like, I see a book, I decide I don't want it on my shelf anymore, I take it off, I put it in the unhaul pile, and then I drag the entire unhaul pile back out to talk to you guys. But anyway, moving on to the next shelf. Nothing on there that I see that I just want to really take down right now. The Powder Mage trilogy is the next backlist book club pick, so we're going to be keeping those. Possibly the Ed McDonald, the Daughter of Redwinter at some point, but I kind of want to try the sequel to see how I feel about it, and if I don't like it, I'll take that one down. The Lost Queen is a potential that I want to get rid of. It's one that I did not love when I read it, but I can appreciate it. However, I will never read the sequel, and I'm never going to reread that book. But it's pretty, so we're going to leave it for the moment. Keeping Name of the Wind, keeping all of the Anthony Ryan. Obviously, nothing is going off the Brandon Sanderson's shelf, so let's look at the very last shelf. I do see one that I think I want to unhaul. So I think I'm going to get rid of Paladin Unbound by Jeffrey Spite. I tried this one for Realmathon last year and just wasn't jiving with the writing style. I do have an audiobook of this, and I think it's on Kindle Unlimited if I end up deciding that I want to try it again. But it is a very like orc classic fantasy adventure type story, and I just wasn't jiving with the writing style. So I think I'm going to let it go to another home. And I think that's it. I don't see anything else on the fantasy shelves that I want to unhaul. So really quickly, let's just go over the ones that I've already yanked off of my shelves and plan to unhaul. So the first one is one that was gifted to me that I am not sure that I really want to unhaul. Deb gifted it to me and I feel really bad, but I'm never going to reread it and I didn't love it. And that is the How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This is one that we read for the Officially Unofficial book club. It is about killer puppets or haunted puppets. And I just didn't love this one. I felt like the pacing was kind of all over the place and he just never really made me believe it enough for me to be scared by it. So I think that I'm going to unhaul this one so that somebody that will love it will get a chance to read it, maybe for a little bit cheaper than Amazon prices. Next up is one of the SPFBO books, and that's going to be A Psalm for the Void. This one I just did not love. You guys have already seen the vlog for this. It is a cosmic horror, not a fantasy. It is very historical, and it just wasn't the book for me. So I think I'm going to get rid of this one. Then we have Don't Kill Me, Emma, because Emma gifted me this one. I really hate unhauling books that have been gifted to me, but I want to give people that would love the book the chance to read it, and by keeping it on my shelves, it's not doing anyone any good, including the author. That is The Tethered Mage by Melissa Crusoe. This is a YA/new adult fantasy story. It is very character driven, very political driven. I'm just not a politically driven reader, not in the way that this one was presented to me. So if you love kind of the conniving, slower type politics, this might really work for you, but I just kept waiting for things to happen and was not necessarily super bored by it, but not overly engaged by it either. Sorry for the angle change and possibly lighting change. My camera died, so we had to stop and keep going on this one. The next two that I'm going to be unhauling are not going to be, any surprise to anyone, and that is The Shadow of What Was Lost and An Echo of Things to Come. I only own the first two in this series. I don't own the third book, but I just feel like they need to go. This is an epic fantasy series that I wanted to love, but unfortunately, it just was not the series for me, and I'm not having a good time. I think they've all gotten a 2 or a 2.5 stars, so I don't need to keep these books. And I know that it is a well-loved series, so hopefully someone else will enjoy them. Then you're thinking, Mel, are you ever going to learn that you should not buy new release thrillers when they come out, and instead you should either read them or hear the reviews first? You would think I would learn that, but I haven't yet. So we're going to be unhauling Stay Awake by Megan Golden. This is about a woman who cannot sleep, or when she does sleep, she loses time. I honestly forget, and I've read this book, but I remember thinking that the main character was so stupid and that she just did not make decisions that I would consider decisions a realistic person would make. And so it really took me out of the story. I ended up not really loving it and ended up, I think, giving this one a 2-star. I don't remember exactly what I gave it, but that sounds right. So I'm going to be unhauling that one. Next up, we have Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. I have not read this one yet. I heard pretty decent things about it a long time ago when it came out, and I was interested in it, but I think it is a much more literary courtroom type book, and I just am not interested in that anymore. I've owned it for forever, and it's just not a book that sounds like it's going to be my kind of book. I may still read this one, but I don't need it on my shelves to read it. So that's kind of the theme of this whole thing, is I need room. And so even if it's a book that I'm interested in, if it's a book that I'm not planning to get to anytime soon, or if it's been sitting on my shelves for forever, I'm going to unhaul it, and then I can always pick it up from the library later. So that's kind of where I'm at with Miracle Creek. Then we have one I've been debating on unhauling for a very long time, and it's been sitting on my shelves since it was published, and I still haven't read it yet. And I'm starting to learn my reading taste a lot better, and I just don't think that this book is going to be my kind of book. And that's Circe by Madeline Miller. I want to love this, but I just don't think that I'm going to. And there's no reason for it to continue to sit on my shelves and take up space and not be in the hands of someone that will love it if I'm not going to. I think this is a very beautiful prose type story set in the time of the Trojan War, and I've heard that it's really, really good if you like a beautifully written story, which I typically do not. So I think that I'm going to let this one go to a better home. That is not me. Then we have The Library of the Dead by T.L. Huchu. This is about a girl that's about, well, I say a girl, this is about a character that is 15, 16 years old. She can see ghosts, and she helps to kind of send them on their merry way, essentially. But she gets roped into potentially being a part of the Library of the Dead. This one, the main character is really what killed me. I did not like them. They were really, really obnoxious in that I'm gonna be a badass but not really kind of way. I didn't love that part of this book, and then the library I really wanted to be a much bigger part of the story, and it just wasn't. So I ended up just not loving this one, and I don't plan to continue with the sequel, so I don't need to keep it. Then let's move on to two that are probably gonna hurt some people's souls, and part of me doesn't want to unhaul these, and part of me says, you've already read this series, you liked it okay, but you don't necessarily need to keep it, because I still haven't bought the third book in the series, and I read them a long time ago. And that's The Fifth Season and The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This series is one that I'm so very glad that I read. I can absolutely see the love for, but just was not an all-time favorite for me. It tries to do a little bit too much and I don't know, it was something about it that did not charm me in the way that a lot of people were charmed. I definitely liked the first book the best, and then the second and the third book I did not like as well. So while Fifth Season was a 4-star read, I just don't know that I'm ever gonna feel the need to pick these back up again. I don't care if I see them on my shelves, and so I think that they just need to go for that reason. I decided to start stacking these books in the floor to see how tall we can make this stack because it's much bigger than I thought it was when I started this video. Next up we have The Ninth Rain by Jen Williams. I'm not unhauling this because I didn't enjoy it. I'm unhauling it because I don't own the complete series and I don't have any intention of buying the complete series. Like, I finished books 2 and 3 and this series kind of peaked at book 1. I think I ended up liking 2 just a little bit better, but I didn't absolutely love the conclusion, so I'm not going to buy them. This is a fantasy sci-fi blend about a world that is dying because there is a worm-like creature that comes up every couple of years, or I guess every hundreds of years, and basically wipes out the land. And I had fun. This was one of the backlist book club picks, and I enjoyed this series, but I'm never gonna reread it, and like I said, I don't need to keep it. I think we're down to the last few. The next is The Black Tongue Thief by Chris Buehlman. This one is one that I read the first chapter of, and I think enjoyed the first chapter, but since reading that, I have heard that this book leans extremely heavy into the humor, and I don't typically like that. It's also written with a very heavy Scottish accent, so I don't think the audiobook is going to be for me, and I just don't know that this is really going to be my kind of story. It does seem like a very gung-ho adventure type story, which tends to lead more heavily on the humor and less heavily on the plot and the characters. Typically just not my thing, so I don't think that I'm going to keep this one. If I do decide to read it, I'll just grab it from the library. Then we have Gideon the Ninth by Tamsin Muir. This one is one that I read a while ago and wanted to love, but sadly didn't. It's another one where the humor kind of took over a little bit and did not completely work for me. Our main character Gideon is very sarcastic, and normally sarcasm would work well for me, but it's just extremely heavy-handed in this book and ended up taking me out of the story, and I wanted more of the murder mystery and more of the world, less of her like unnecessary sass, if that makes sense, even though I love sass, so you would think that I would want that. But it just did not work for me. As much as I wanted it to, it really didn't, and I don't plan to continue in the series, so I don't need to keep this one. And then last, I think, but not least, we have Scales and Sensibilities. This is another one of the SPFBO books. It's just not my kind of book. It is a Regency romance with a sprinkle of dragon. It is very over the top, very ludicrous, and I can see why it would charm people that like Regency romance. It's just not me. I don't like it. And so I found this one to be utterly and completely ridiculous and just not as much fun or charming as I was hoping it would be. So not the book for me. So this stack is getting really, really big, and I will show you here in a moment how big this stack is. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of unhaul, let me know down in the comments. I'm honestly not even sure if you're gonna see this because I think the angles in some of this were really, really bad, and I'm not sure if I'm going to end up keeping those or not. We'll see. But anyway, I needed to clear some room off of my shelves, and I think I set out what I accomplished to do, so now I need to fix the mess that is going on behind me. Yeah, as always, my Pango will be linked down in the description box below if you guys want to purchase any of these books. I always put them up on Pango. As always, you can find links to my Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and Goodreads down in the description box below. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a big thumbs up and subscribe if you wanna, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!